Conrad Mitzi comes out swinging in PAC meeting. Toothpaste brand rep apologizes to dentists after Rosiane Kutayar's Halloween gift. Justice Minister says he will remain focused on his portfolio after Jorgen Fenech chats published. And we also have an interview with Peter Agius, the PN chief spokesperson, to discuss Malta's current supply chain problems. All this and more on today's episode of Lovin Daily. Good afternoon, Malta and Gozo. Welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joining me today is Tim Diacono. I guess the biggest news story of today was Conrad Mitzi finally appearing in front of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament. Tim, what happened over there?
Not much. Lots of hours of 3 hours of Conrad Mitzi explaining the successes of in the energy sector. Some, to his credit, were accurate, but it was obviously characterized by lots of infighting and lots of shouting between him and Beppe Fenech-Adami, particularly about if he's corrupt or not, about whether Beppe Fenech-Adami is corrupt, who thinks that they're above the law. So basically, the usual partisan nonsense, which obviously helps Conrad Mitzi because tribalism is very rife in Malta. Conrad Mitzi has no party. The Labour Party has kicked him out. It's something that he keeps trying to forget about, trying to make people forget about, but he's no longer a member of the Labour Party. They expelled him last year. They took a vote, kicked him out, even though today he said se nivvota bil-qalb favur il-Partit Laburista, which I found quite interesting. There will be more meetings, so the PNMPs didn't get much of a chance to ask him any questions about the power station, about the Panama companies, about Montenegro. So pleasure's yet to come. But what's telling is that Conrad Mitzi, some people were saying Conrad Mitzi is just going to refuse to say anything. He's just going to sit back and let his lawyers do all the talking, if at all, and just stay silent. He didn't do that. He came out swinging which set the tone for the future meetings.
Yeah, I saw it and I just thought, what a mockery of the whole parliamentary process, right? That this man was there to respond on, at the end of the day, deals spent with government funds, your money, my money, all taxpayers' money. He's is paid by taxpayer money as an MP, and rather than address the issues, it just descended into a partisan, really, shouting match, which is all Conrad Mitzi really wants at this point. When you're facing such allegations, the easiest thing to feed to is the lowest common denominator in the country, and how easy to do it when you can get 40 to 50% of people on your side by just making it a partisan issue. I really would have appreciated more, particularly from government MPs, seeing an independent MP disrespect the parliamentary process like he did, rather than laughing as some of them did. I think it was a bit of a disappointing day for our MPs, and I hope when Conrad Mitzi comes back, we'll actually hear the answers we all wanted to hear. On to our next story. A representative of the Vitas toothpaste brand has apologized to dentists after PLMP Rosiane Kutayar included their product in a Halloween goodie bag she handed out to school children. So the issue, if you don't familiar with it, has sort of been making the rounds on the news over the last few days. Rosiane Kutayar visited a number of primary schools in her electoral district, handing out goodie bags to children along the way. It's already made claims that this is tantamount to treating, even though, as a really cool piece by Tim actually said, that the whole law around treating makes it quite murky and everything. But, this situation continues to develop. In her goodie bag, Kutayar, amongst the sweets, included a toothpaste, saying that she was encouraging children to brush her teeth. Independent candidate Arnold Cassolo, who first raised the issue, has now published an email. A representative has sent dentists over it. They say basically, please be assured, this is a quote, please be assured that in no way did I promote the consumption of sweets and surely did not sponsor their purchase on this campaign. As often happens, I was contacted by a government department and asked for the said samples to be distributed among school children. It was never my intention to have this politicized or to be associated with the consumption of sweets. Please accept my sincere apologies for this incident and do not hesitate to contact them for further information and clarification. Casola said, the dentist community is now sort of asking how the samples ended up into the possession of MP when it was actually intended for a government department, actually blending the lines a little bit with how MPs, how politicians use government resources for their agenda. Already Children's Commissioner Pauline Michelli has said it was a whole uncomfortable situation about it. But, as Tim actually pointed out in a very interesting article he wrote, it's actually not illegal.
I think it's though what I find is what would have happened if she didn't put the toothpaste in the goodie bag? And what would have happened? People have said she's promoting unhealthy eating. So they say, okay, what if she didn't give sweets and she gave fruit instead? She already did. She gave out oranges to a number of elderly people and got, dragged quite a bit for it. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. I find it like quite a funny controversy overall. So that point of the government department is interesting and worth taking note of. Another funny stunt that happened this morning. The Union of Professional Educators delivered an actual pudina to the Ministry of Education to basically thank him, mockingly of course, for the pudina, which is Maltese for blunder, in the way they handled the transfer of student teachers, a number of student teachers to schools. So the issue basically revolves around there were like 10 to 16 student teachers who were promised they were going to get a placement, the first placement. These are newly graduated teachers. They were promised they're going to be placed in one school, and a few days before they were told, actually, you're not going to be sent here, you're going to be sent there, which is quite disruptive. And the union saying, look, we're going to fight this, we're going to fight for these teachers, and if needs be, we will give more pudini to Frank Fabri, who's the permanent secretary, and the people in the education sector know him as the person who basically runs the education ministry. It's a funny stunt, but I mean, sometimes these kind of stunts really do highlight problems in the sector. So it's quite a known, sadly, it's quite a known fact that the education sector is facing a huge shortage of teachers. The conditions, some people say they're great, but they're very challenging. It's only got more challenging with all the paperwork that's been added onto it. The course has got harder. It's become harder. It's much harder now to become a teacher than it's ever been. They're saying we need more professional teachers, but fewer people are going there. So the result is, ironically, we're getting more unqualified teachers because there's a lot of bypassing the system with getting peripatetic teachers on board. So yeah, complete blunder, that is true. And yeah, it's a way of disrespect, these student teachers. This is the first entry into our education system, and already there's all this chaos. Like, you're going to be sent to this school, and they're preparing for this school. Like, oh, actually going to be sent there. Like, it's on the way. It isn't how you should treat education. Something we should treasure and promote. So well done to the union for this.
And just a small point, as you said, it shows maybe the treatment of new teachers, being jostled around, left, right, and centre, no real consistency. It's no matter there is such a shortage. As you said, Tim, the education sector, I think, is facing a crisis at the moment with the number of teachers that are present. There are primary schools across the country that have been without a teacher for a month, and all this stems from is a dispute between the unions and the education ministry that started well before summer. That's something that should be made absolutely clear. MUT and UPE both told the education ministry that it's simply unacceptable to have teachers who are not qualified to teach primary school. Like, you can't have somebody who's had a degree in drama suddenly teaching primary school children. To be honest, if that's the case, it's really no surprise we have such a high rate of early school leavers and perform so badly in key subjects like reading, maths and science. I mean, this is not from me, this is from the European Commission studies into Malta's education system. What I'd really like to see is maybe less of a dispute between all these people to finally come together and solve the education system in its entirety.
There's also another issue, just to add on to that, is that it also funny that it's also not only are we discrediting the education system, we're also discrediting subjects like drama. So if we're going to say a drama teacher can be switched to start teaching maths and English and Maltese and other subjects, they're going to teach less drama, and it kind of flies in the face of all these commitments by politicians that we need to start promoting more non-academic subjects. Yeah, well, it comes to the crunch, this is what happened.
Yeah, and just to add on that as well, like you'd never put a maths teacher teaching drama and art. You know, it's simply unfair to the drama students and the art students as well. You want the best people teaching, and there are some very good teachers out there. I'm 100% sure of it. On to our next story. Justice Minister Edward Zammit Lewis has played down the implications of chats with murder suspect Jorgen Fenech after they were published by author and former PL delegate Mark Camilleri. Asked by Lovin Malta whether he has any response to the publication of the chats, Zammit Lewis said he had already reacted weeks ago and that he remains focused on the portfolio that has been entrusted with him. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Mark Camilleri published a series of chats showing Edward Zammit Lewis completely fawning over Jorgen Fenech, saying, "I miss you, please message me," all these really, quite sad messages. In one message, he even suggests, asks at least Jorgen Fenech if he could provide jobs to his constituents. If this all sounds familiar, Lovin Malta actually reported extensively on this issue a few weeks before. However, as Zammit Lewis has long maintained, it was just a friendship, and that he always maintained integrity in his career. These messages also include how Zammit Lewis called Labour Party stupid and Jahan, telling Fenech how they underrated him, and asked whether he wouldn't say, sort of saying, he would have left politics if it wasn't for his wife. In May 2019, 5 months before Fenech was arrested for the murder, Zammit Lewis even invited himself and Keith, probably Keith Kembry, over to Fenech's farm. What it clearly shows is how Zammit Lewis was continuously fawning over Jorgen Fenech, and Jorgen Fenech wanted nothing to do with him. Lovin Malta has even reported how Jorgen Fenech used to make fun of Edward Zammit Lewis in separate messages to separate people, so to show what he actually thought of the relationship. And I just want to say something small. I know Zammit Lewis might be playing it down, but everyone out there watching it, think about the implications this has. This man is the Justice Minister. He is responsible for the reforms, the crucial reforms, brought on by the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia, where Jorgen Fenech stands charged. So, as the old adage goes, justice, doesn't have to be done. It has to also be seen that it's being done, And at this present moment, in my opinion at least, I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, but Zammit Lewis at this point is not fit for purpose to be Justice Minister.
I think I completely agree with you, but there's also something that's a little bit more, potentially, if not disturbing, something that definitely needs to be explained. So these messages were sent between January and October 2019, the same year that Jorgen Fenech was arrested for Daphne's murder. Now, Joseph Muscat has said publicly that he knew that the police were treating Jorgen Fenech as a murder suspect, and that he had invited Jorgen Fenech to his private birthday party at Girgenti because he wanted, or he was advised to act normally, not to make Jorgen Fenech feel that he was a suspect. But while they were speaking together at Muscat's party, Joseph Muscat knew full well that the police were treating him as a murder suspect. Now, we also know that Joseph Muscat and Edward Zammit Lewis are very close friends. They go back to sixth form. They're in the same class. In one of the texts, in fact, Joseph Zammit Lewis says, "I'm on a cruise with the Prime Minister right now." So they're close. He was in Muscat's circle of trust. So the question is, if Muscat knew that Jorgen Fenech was a suspect, did he tell his best friend? Did he tell Zammit Lewis that he was a suspect? And did he know that his friend was sucking up to him like that? So if he knew, and if he did tell Edward Zammit Lewis, then why did Edward Zammit Lewis hound Jorgen Fenech like that?
Yeah.
I think that's quite a crux of it all. It could be that, I'd rather not say giving theories at the moment, but there are potential reasons why that's the case. I think though, Zammit Lewis and Jos Muscat should be clear over what the role of Zammit Lewis was in all of this very twisted saga. Finally, some good news. Energy Minister Miriam Dalli has announced that a 2,000 square meter stretch of land in Alfaloo should be converted into a picnic area. So, equipped with fencing, security cameras, the works, waste separation containers, picnic benches. Great to see more open spaces popping up in Malta. We definitely need more of it. Obviously, doesn't compensate for the atrocities of what's happening in Schlendi at the moment. But I think it's also good to highlight these initiatives so that the government knows that this is what people want. And then if they know that people like these things, they're going to do more of them, because obviously at the end of the day they want to be more popular, and we should push for projects that will benefit the country, and this is one of them. So yeah, well done Miriam Dalli and everyone who worked on this, and hope we see more of them.
Yeah, I agree totally, Tim. So nice to see the government actually making, some public spaces available after all that we've lost really over the last few years. As much as it's really positive, and as Tim said, really back these projects was the only way we're going to get more. I really wish there was a bit more protection of our cultural heritage and things like that, something we still see happen, with this development and stuff like that. Doesn't make up for it, it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully, there's a lot more to come from the government. Which other areas should be made public spaces that you know of? Maybe know us in the comments below, maybe let us know in the comments below, maybe Miriam Dalli will have a look and maybe make that park a reality. We're just going to go play, we're going to play a small video. When we come back, we've got a really interesting interview with Peter Agius, that's the PN chief spokesperson, and he's here to discuss Malta's current supply chain problems. Stay tuned.
Everyone says that young people are the future, but all too often the powers that be suddenly become deaf when we want our voices heard. That's where the European Parliament has stepped in, giving young people a platform to share their ideas in one of the most powerful forums in the world. The European Youth event took place between the 8th and 9th of October, bringing together 10,000 young people to discuss more than 2,000 ideas for the future of Europe. With the 20 most popular ideas being presented to Parliament on the 22nd and 23rd of October, there are an incredible set of proposals covering some of the crucial issues facing the EU. It's clear that the environment is a priority for young people who presented concrete ideas looking to make recycling easier around the block and ensure that companies are held accountable for their role in climate change, something which has been lacking for far too long. Rule of law concerns in the EU should also be addressed, with young people demanding a more effective mechanism to protect the EU values that we all take for granted. What's clear is that young people support a federal Europe and are ready to work together to help solve today's and tomorrow's problems. Whether that's boosting our healthcare systems, our educational structures, and our digital landscape, or promoting multilingualism and a stronger asylum seekers policy. Ultimately, young people are demanding that we start learning from our mistakes to help create better policies in the future for you and me. How do you say awesome work in 24 languages? Well, whatever the case, I'm sure that young people will certainly have the answer. Should young people be the drivers of change? Let us know in the comments below.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is PNG spokesperson Peter Agius. Hi Peter, thank you for being with us here on Lovin Daily. So Peter, we know the world is still going through serious problems with the supply chain because obviously a lot of countries chose to lock down during the pandemic, and now countries are opening up, and there are problems. So, in short, can you explain what issues Malta is facing at the moment in terms of importation and exportation?
Yes, being an island, Tim, we basically import virtually everything we consume, okay? Because the little manufacturing primary industries we have been going down in output over the past years, and the fact that there is a price hike in freight, in international freight, from the shipping industry in particular, is having a double effect on everything we do in Malta, in the manufacture itself, so whatever we produce for export, and whatever we consume locally. And it is a double effect because for whatever we are producing, our local manufacture, we are evidently importing, in most cases, raw materials. So to import raw materials, we have to face these price hikes, okay? You have people in the manufacturing industry telling you that they used to be importing, for instance, a container from China or from the Far East for 500, 600 euros for one container. Now they are charging them 6,000 euros. It's more than 10 times as much, okay? So that's the importation of the raw material, which is having a significant impact on all the manufacturing in Malta. And then to export, so all our companies with an export vocation, which want to conquer markets in Europe and beyond, have to face the same quandary when they export, because they have the same problems to export, the same price differences. And of course, to understand this, you have to put it in the context of your competition. So if you are competing with enterprises in let's say, the south of Italy, okay, or in Turkey, or in Germany, or in France, you are competing with companies who have access to a rail network, okay, and to the most well-developed road network. So your competitor can send his products all around Europe, okay, through alternative means. In our case, we have no option but to use the sea as a means of reaching our customers, and the sea to also to get our raw materials. So this is having a double impact on Maltese manufacture and on Maltese business in general, and it is something that the world of politics has to see to with immediate effect.
So obviously what this means is, besides Malta becoming less competitive, presumably it means that all these costs, extra costs at the end of the day, will pass on to the consumer.
Absolutely.
So that means that everything's going to get, well, many things are going to get way more expensive. Which items would you say are most at risk of inflation?
You know, I think across the board, you have the effect of inflation of these freight hikes across the board. So there are some prices where the price of the raw materials is going up even beyond the freight dimension. So when it comes to steel and wood, for instance, we've had, I'm basing myself not on scientific data, but on what people tell you when you're around, out and about, right? So we had people telling us about the price of steel, for instance, going up by 70% in the last few months alone. But the increase is across the board. In fact, there have been quite a few now indicators, you know, even from the official indicators showing that there is an inflation going on beyond what you would normally expect. And this evidently is squeezing on our families. Okay, so then there are a number of materials, for instance, appliances, which are also made of steel, where you need a lot of raw materials to produce these appliances, which are seeing, some people are saying that, for instance, a price of a refrigerator, okay, or a washing machine is expected to rise over 30% in the next few weeks. Evidently, with Malta having a sizable chunk of the population at the risk of poverty, because data statistics indicate that there are around 70,000 people in Malta who are living just doing by, you know, with their wages. So this can have a dramatic effect, especially on that sector of society, but of course on all the population.
So in a month's time, we're going to be celebrating Christmas. In America, there have been warnings that because of this issue, there are some items that people will simply not be able to buy off the shelves. There won't be items available. Is this true for Malta? Is there a risk that we won't be able to buy some things for Christmas?
I don't see that there should be supply problems in general. Okay, so there is evidently a price effect. There are companies who have supply issues, yes, like for raw materials, you know. for steel, for rare earths, for other raw materials, but I wouldn't think that the consumers themselves would have a problem to access, goods. The question is a question of price.
Yeah.
So
They can
we
afford
could
it.
see a degradation of what we would normally, pamper ourselves with for Christmas time. So we would be heading towards a revision of our ambitions in that sense if there is an inflation going on.
So like buy less expensive Christmas gifts and
Voila, yeah. You buy less for the same money, of course. And here, of course, in regard to all of this, the Nationalist Party is proposing an intervention into the market, an assistance of Maltese companies in particular. So what we want to see is that the country is not helpless in this situation, because what we're seeing right now is that, for instance, I followed Energy Minister Miriam Dalli in Luxembourg recently. She gave a statement. She came out of the Council of Ministers, and she made a strong appeal, that insularity has an effect on inflation, okay? And that's totally correct. But she was speaking in the context of energy, ironically, because it was the PN government who invested in the interconnector, okay, which made Malta, which actually did away with the insularity, with Malta's insularity in the energy sector.
Mhm.
But ironically, then it's the government who is downplaying this problem and actually trying to disregard the very interesting proposal put on the table by the PN involving a national fund to help in the export and the importation of
So this
products.
fund, let's just get to this. So it's proposing 40 million euro in state aid after an agreement with the European Commission to help the logistics industry. Miriam Dalli has spoken about, she didn't dismiss it. She said that government funding alone, pumping money into the industry is not enough. We need more long-term investment. So can you explain how this state aid exactly is going to help and how we're going to ensure that it won't increase inflation and that it will actually result in consumers getting lower prices, if that's the ultimate goal of it?
The idea behind the national fund is twofold. There is the consumer inflation price aspect, but there's also the employment, investment and manufacturing aspect.
So who will get the money?
The money will go to the importers and the exporters to help them to face the competition, because let's face it, we are living in a state right now in our country where we have our services economy, whatever is financial services, gaming, they are under threat really with our grey listing, right? So we have one pillar of our economy which is already under significant threat. You have the professionals in that field going through a period of duress. And I feel sorry when I see that the government is not even recognizing this right now, okay? Not even a word in the latest budget discussions by the government side on this. So this is one pillar of our economy. The second pillar is tourism. We know the particularly hard time for the tourist industry, which is also largely neglected right now. And then you have the third pillar, which would be the manufacturing industry. So unless we need a rescue fund here, we're not thinking about a permanent mechanism. This is a rescue fund we need to make sure that the local manufacturing industry weathers this period. Mm-hmm. Okay, then we will need to take measures as we go along. But we definitely need a rescue fund, and it's quite disappointing that the government does not engage with this, because even at the EU level, the European Union has a specific article in the treaty, Article 174 of the treaty, which specifically recognizes the challenges of insulated territories and regions. So the European legislation actually gives us the tools, to make the pitch to help Maltese companies face the competition. Because after all, here I had, for instance, one concrete example of a Maltese manufacturing pharmaceuticals in this particular case, exporting 20 pellets of pharmaceuticals from Malta to France as compared to exporting the same amount from Catania, which is still disconnected with the mainland, but there's a 1,600 euro difference in just the shipment in the cost itself. And this is not to mention that in Malta then you have our own internal costs is shut, our own monopolies, which are also having their effect on our exports. So having the government disdaining and disregarding the proposals of the PN and the calls for rescue by the industry is quite shocking, because we have come to the rescue and we appreciate this, we support this, okay? The wage supplement, the vouchers, the in-work benefits, these are very good measures. We support them wholeheartedly. But now is the time to support our manufacturing industry, because it's really a time where it's calling for our rescue.
Yes, indeed, it is a problem. I don't think it's being spoken about enough, and I think it will be on the agenda in the coming months, certainly. As you said, the third pillar of Malta's economy, which is also under duress, even if it's not necessarily as in your face as tourism or financial services, doesn't mean it's not there, and it is something that we must save for the future of our economy. Hopefully Brussels will listen. Peter, Jules, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Tim.
On Lovin Daily. Thank you very much for following us. Make sure you follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest developments, and have an evening full of love.